What if Earth had rings like Saturn? Let's imagine you wake up one day and look out your window, and instead of clouds and birds and sky, you see something else. Massive, glowing arches stretching across the sky. Not an alien spaceship, not the aurora, but planetary rings like Saturn's. Except here, around Earth, and they're beautiful. Glittering bands of ice and dust, curving around the planet like a cosmic crown. You run outside, and everyone's looking up, mouths open, and nobody's getting to work on time today. But before we all start printing postcards and building ring-viewing hotels, let's ask, what would it actually mean if Earth had rings like Saturn? First, we need to talk about how rings work. Saturn's rings are made of countless bits of ice, rock and cosmic dust, orbiting in a flat plane around the planet. They aren't just floating randomly. Each piece is orbiting like a tiny moon, held in place by a delicate balance of gravity and motion. But Earth doesn't have rings. Why not? Well, for one thing, we have the moon. Saturn's rings exist because no large moon ever formed close enough to sweep all that material together. If Earth did have rings, they'd have to exist inside what's called the Roche limit, the distance from a planet within which moons can't form, because tidal forces would tear them apart. And surprise! That's exactly how you get rings. Moons or comets that get too close, get shredded, and leave behind a trail of rubble. So for Earth to have rings, something dramatic must have happened, like a Mars-sized object smacking into us, which, by the way, did happen once, billions of years ago. That's how we got the moon. But what if, instead of the moon forming, the debris just spread out and became rings? Well, assuming the rings lasted until today, which is a big if, we'll come back to that, they'd change our world in huge ways. Let's start with the obvious one, the sky. Depending on where you are on Earth, you'd see the rings differently. If you're near the equator, you might not see much at all, just a thin line across the sky. But the farther north or south you go, the more dramatic it gets. Near the poles, the rings would arc high overhead, glittering during the day and glowing eerily at night. Some cities would become famous just for their ring views. Instagram would collapse under the weight of all the hashtag ring sunset posts. Entire tourist industries would spring up. Book now for the ring light eclipse tour. But the rings wouldn't just be pretty, they'd mess with things too. For starters, the rings would reflect sunlight. They'd cast massive shadows on Earth's surface. That might sound harmless, but if you live under a shadowy band that blocks sunlight for hours a day, your weather might change. Your crops might not grow the same. Your entire local climate could shift. Oh, and remember how we use satellites. GPS, TV, internet. All of those orbit Earth in a relatively narrow band of space. The same space the rings would be in. So if the rings were wide and dense, they'd be like a giant glowing junkyard in the sky, crashing into any satellite that tries to pass through. We'd either have to launch everything above the rings, which is expensive, or build around them very carefully. Then there's the space debris problem. If the rings are made of ice and rock, even tiny fragments could become deadly if they fall out of orbit. One day you're having a picnic, the next day a microwave-sized ice chunk smashes into your car. Insurance companies would be unhappy. And that's not all. The rings themselves aren't stable forever. Over millions of years, the particles in the rings would start to clump together, or fall to Earth, or be pulled out by the moon's gravity, if we even had a moon in this version of Earth. That means either the rings disappear eventually, or they collapse into new moons. So if you were born during the ring era, lucky you. If not, you might just have to look at old photos and sigh. And then there's the biggest question of all. Would life have even evolved the same way? If rings had blocked sunlight, changed weather patterns, or disrupted the balance of energy across the globe, Earth's early climate could have been totally different. Maybe deserts would be jungles. Maybe ice ages would have come early. Maybe humans never evolve at all. Maybe dinosaurs look up at the rings and think, cool, right before the asteroid hits. But let's not get too dark. Let's say the rings do exist and humans do evolve, and we're all just lucky enough to live on a planet with natural celestial bling. It would change how we think about space, about beauty, about our place in the universe. Ancient civilizations would have built myths around them. Poets would write odes to the sky. Kids would grow up drawing pictures with giant rainbows looping over mountains. Except they're not rainbows. They're real. Right there. And maybe, just maybe, someone would ask, what if we built